We're on. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the October 16th Planning Commission meeting for Larimer County. My name is Patrick Rowe. It's the tradition of the Planning Commission to start each hearing with the Pledge of Allegiance, so I'd ask everybody to join me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks to everybody for joining us this evening. Again, my name is Patrick Rowe. I'm the chair of the Planning Commission. Copies of the agenda are posted by the wall. We'd ask everybody to please mute your cell phones. The members of this Planning Commission are volunteers. I'm going to ask each member of the commission to introduce themselves, starting with Commissioner to my right, Commissioner Duffy.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming this evening. My name is Connor Duffy. I've been on the Planning Commission now for almost 2 years, and I live in the Timnath area. Thank you.
Commissioner Adam Eggleston. I've been on the commission for about 4 months, and I live in the southeast side of Fort Collins.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shelby King. I've been on the commission for a little more than a year. I live in LaPorte.
Good evening. I'm John Weiss. I've been on the commission for about 4 months. Oh, sorry. It'll talk. Maybe. Anyway, and I live in Timnath.
Patrick Rowe. I live in Northwest Fort Collins, and I've been on the commission for 3 years. Do we have any commissioners online?
We do.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jordana Barrick. I've been on the Planning Commission for 4 years now, and I live just north of Fort Collins.
Great. Thank you. Ms. Axmaker is the planning manager. Ms. Axmaker, would you mind introducing staff in attendance and provide a meeting protocol for this evening?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Rowe. I'm joined at the dais here tonight by Christine Luckison from our County Attorney's Office. We also have Leah Schneider from our Health Department. We have Sam Lasher, who's a county planner. We have Melissa Brusky with our CERT team, as well as Ryan Oswalder, which I'm sure I screwed up. I apologize. Then joined out in the audience, we have Connor Sheldon and David Pringle from our engineering staff, and Jared Say also with county planning. I'm Jenny Axmaker. I'm the planning manager, and let me go over our procedural overview. We respectfully request that all members of the public silence their electronic devices. Please help yourself to a copy of the agenda and hearing procedure instructions located on the wall just by the entrance to the hearing room. If you're joining us online, you can find that agenda at larimer.org/BOCC/commissioners-meeting. For each discussion item tonight, we will begin with a presentation from county staff, followed by a presentation from the applicant with time for any clarifying questions from the commissioners. There will be an opportunity for any members of the public to address the commission with their comments on the matter. Both the applicant and county staff will have an opportunity to respond to any questions or concerns raised during public testimony. The commission will then ask any remaining questions of the applicant or staff before entering into deliberations and working towards a decision on the matter. During public comment, please wait to speak until you're recognized by the chair. Please maintain civility, refraining from audience applause, comments, or disruptions, whether positive or negative. Please make all comments to the commissioners from the podium. A portable microphone is available if needed. And please state your name at the beginning of your comments and provide the spelling of your name if it's unique. Please speak directly into the microphone so that those of us joining remotely may hear. For our hybrid meeting tonight, if you're attending on Zoom, you will be muted until you're recognized by the chair. If an online attendee wishes to speak or request a consent item to be removed, please use the raise your hand function on the Zoom control bar. Upon request, we do have assisted listening devices available for the hearing impaired. There is one item on the consent agenda tonight, and we have 2 items on the discussion agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Axmaker. I have some just brief comments about the role of the Planning Commission for the audience. The Planning Commission acts as an advisory board to the Larimer County Commissioners. We review and make recommendations on land use items outside of town and city boundaries. Some land use decisions will also be heard by the Board of County Commissioners. We come to these meetings and hearings unbiased and listen to staff's report, public testimony, as well as information provided by the applicant. The Planning Commission is the final decision-making body for location and extent reviews, as well as amendments to and approvals of the Larimer County Master Plan, sub-area plans, and amendments. The Planning Department staff provides us with a comprehensive package of information about land use applications and plan amendments, and we gain insights from the information and viewpoints that you all provide, so we really do appreciate your participation and your comments. Ms. Axmaker, are there any amendments to the agenda as published?
No, sir, they're not.
Great. So next I'll ask if there's anybody in person or online that wishes to speak to a county land use code or other land use matter that's not on our agenda. This is your opportunity to bring up any items that are not currently on our agenda. See none here. Any online?
We have no hands raised online.
Okay, great. So next for us is approval of the minutes from our September 18th meeting. Are there any amendments to the minutes from fellow commissioners? And if not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes from the September 18th meeting.
Second.
And roll call, please.
Duffy,
Aye.
Wise,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Eggleston,
Yes.
Barrick,
Yes.
Chair Rowe.
Yes. So those are approved. So we'll next turn to our consent agenda. So there's a single item on our consent agenda. The consent agenda is, so items on this agenda are meant to be non-controversial and routine and will not be discussed unless requested by a commissioner or a member of the audience. The consent agenda will be voted on as a whole. Again, there's just a single item this evening. This allows us to focus and spend more time on those discussion items. So if there's anyone here who wishes to speak to the consent agenda, now will be the opportunity to pull that. The item on that that we have on the consent agenda is the new cell tower at 475 High Lonesome Road, special review. It's file number 24WCF0141. So if anyone wants to speak to that item, now is the opportunity. I'm not seeing anything. Anybody online?
There are no hands raised online.
Great. And then with for that particular item, yeah. So and sorry. So do you want to pull that item?
Yes.
Okay. So sorry. So we will pull that item, and it'll actually go onto our discussion
All right.
calendar,
Okay.
and then there'll be an
Thank you.
opportunity. So we will pull that item from the consent agenda and add it to our discussions items list. So we now have 3 discussion items. We will stick with the published order. So we'll start with the 2 that are on the discussion agenda, and then we'll add to that the item that was previously on the consent agenda. So I will start with our first discussion item. That's the LPCO LLC rezoning, file number 24 zone 3611. Yeah, and do we have a staff presentation this evening?
Commissioner Rowe,
Yes.
before you start this one, I need to recuse myself from this discussion. My spouse works in real estate, and his client has a property that sits on the boundary of this. And so just to make sure there's no future conflict, I'm going to step out for this one.
Okay, yeah, we appreciate that. And if you want to turn your camera off and mute your microphone, we'll let you know when it's time to come back on.
And Chair Rowe will be having this presentation virtually from Michael Whitley.
Great, thank you.
All right, good evening. I'm Michael Whitley, Senior Planner with the Larimer County Planning Division. This item is the LPCO LLC rezoning. It is a request to rezone a 5-acre parcel from O, open, to PD, planned development. The proposed planned development would allow a sawmill, fleet services, a detached single-unit dwelling, accessory uses to that dwelling, and would allow multiple principal uses on the property. The applicant is Chad Uthman, and the property owner is LPCO LLC. So the subject property is a 5-acre parcel located here that is located north of, on the north side of West County Road 54G, approximately 1/4 mile west of Taft Hill Road, which turns into North County Road 19 north of 54G. As I said, the property is owned open, and it's also in the boundary of the LaPorte Plan area. The property currently contains a home constructed in 1934, a home constructed in 1986, a sawmill business, and a fleet services business. The applicant's project description, which can be found as Attachment C, contains further descriptions of the various uses and buildings on the property, and notes that the property has been used for business purposes since 1971. So in the zoning district, the open zoning district, there's one home allowed per parcel, and the open zoning district does not allow sawmills or fleet services operations, and there's been no zoning approval for those uses granted on this particular property. There's not currently a standard zoning district that would accommodate the current mixes of uses on the property. Therefore, we are proposing to, or the property owner is proposing to rezone the property to PD. So the PD is, again, planned development, and that's a zoning district that can be used in areas subject to an area plan, such as the LaPorte planning area, to allow development that's consistent with the plan. And the plan development zoning is intended to allow greater flexibility in land uses and site design in exchange for a more creative and imaginative design with a higher level of amenity and public benefits. So within the area plan, there's a future land use map. And the future land use map shows for this property that the appropriate use would be low density residential uses with a density of 2 to 4 units per acre. And then the plan also calls at the intersection of 54G and Taft Hill Road / North County Road 19, it identifies those properties as appropriate for business center uses. So the proposed PD would allow the larger home, which was constructed in 1986, to remain as a primary dwelling, will allow the smaller home, which was constructed in 1934, to remain as an accessory dwelling, and it would allow the sawmill and fleet services uses to remain subject to site plan review approval and subject to compliance with all other applicable development standards. A complete description of the PD zoning can be found as a proposed condition, and that is on page 256 of the Planning Commission packet. So in the LaPorte planning area, there is a committee called the LaPorte Planning Advisory Committee, also known as LAPAC. And typically when a project is in the LaPorte planning area, we have a meeting with the LAPAC committee to get a recommendation on the case, and that recommendation is passed on to the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners. So for this particular item, we did have trouble establishing a quorum for a meeting for the LAPAC members to review this application. So in lieu of a LAPAC meeting, we scheduled a neighborhood meeting, and we held that neighborhood meeting on October 10th, so just last week. Now, the intent was to invite LAPAC members to that meeting, but we did find out the day of the meeting that because of some errors, there was not notice provided to LAPAC members. We did hold the meeting as anticipated and as scheduled. There were no neighbors who showed up, and there were no neighbors who have commented on this application in a negative way. We'll get to that in just a few minutes. So the planning manager did send out an email to LAPAC members the day after the meeting, soliciting input, and saying that should any LAPAC member want to comment on this application, they could email me directly. by no later than the end of day yesterday. And so we did not receive any comments from the LAPAC members individually on this particular request. So there's 3 sets of review criteria that are applicable to this particular application. I'll go over them briefly and then touch on a couple of things. So there's the general rezoning review criteria, which is applicable to any rezoning. So that review criteria looks at compatibility of the proposed zoning with the surrounding uses. It looks at the community need or public benefit that would be satisfied by the rezoning. It looks for changes of circumstances in the area that would warrant the zoning. It looks to see if there's adequate infrastructure to support the development that could result from the proposed use or zoning, and impacts on the natural environment. There's also criteria for rezoning to planned development, and what these boil down to are is it in an area that the planned development zoning district is used in? In this case, it is appropriate. It is an appropriate zoning district in the LaPorte planning area. Also, whether it addresses a unique situation, and then if there's any standard that's not addressed by the planned development, that it would the resulting development would be consistent with the land use code. There's also general review criteria, and the general review criteria is a bit redundant, but it's very thorough in making sure that any application is compliant with the land use code, compliant with any other applicable regulations that may be beyond the land use code that might be applicable for a particular use, compliant with prior approvals, and then the zoning districts and development standards and other code provisions all speak back to compliant with the land use code. So we do find that the development services team has found that this particular application would comply with these criteria. So I would like to note that there was several opportunities for public comment on this application. With the application, there were some letters of from surrounding property owners that were provided by the applicant in support of the application, including 2 properties that are immediately adjacent to the property to the west. So there's a farm. I can show that. So the property owner who owns this farm, who also owns a sliver of land between the subject property and this residential property, provided a letter of support, and then the owner of this property provided a letter of support. No other input was received. There was also a letter of support from the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and that letter noted that the current sawmill on the property has partnered with the Natural Resources Conservation Service for several years, assisting with fire mitigation and forest restoration, and they see that the continued use of this property would be a significant public benefit. And the development services team has agreed with that bit of assessment. So also in this area, although virtually everything on this map beyond the corner is zoned, well, actually there's a mix of open zoning, but then also there are several areas of commercial, and there are several commercial businesses. So just to the west of this property, in this next quarter mile or so, there are 2 auto-related uses. There is another sawmill. There's a concrete batch plant on the south side of the property. There is an approved fleet services use. It's a trucking business. There's also a retail greenhouse and retail business. So the proposed uses are not inconsistent with the surrounding area. And again, there's no public concern. So even though several of these lots are zoned for commercial uses on the north side of 54G, and then the majority of the properties on the south side of 54G, west of Brock Hill Road, I probably got that wrong, this road here. Even though there's zone commercial, the LaPorte area plan does call for this to be residential. So although it's inconsistent with that plan, it's consistent with the land use pattern in the area. So the Development Services team does find that the proposed rezoning complies with the rezoning review criteria found in section 661D, complies with the rezoning to PD standards found in section 661E, and complies with the general review criteria found in section 638D of the Land Use Code. The Development Services team's recommendation, which can be found on pages 255 and 256, is that the Development Services team recommends that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of County Commissioners approval of the LPCO LLC rezoning, file 24 zone 3611, subject to the condition found on page 256 of the Planning Commission packet. And our suggested motion is on the screen, and I won't read that, but that is a suggested motion should the Planning Commission decide to follow. So that's a brief overview of the staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions about specifics of the application or any given review criteria.
Great. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Whitley.
You're welcome.
I'll first ask if my fellow planning commissioners have any questions or clarifications for staff at this time. Seeing none, and if you guys would just let me know if Ms. Barrick, she's recused from this item, excuse me. And is the applicant in attendance tonight, and do they have a presentation? Yes, please step forward, yeah. If you could introduce yourself, and not totally sure if that mic's on, but if you...
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Nicole Ootman, and this is my husband, Chad. Chad actually grew up on the property. He's been there his whole life. And this is where we live life. We have our family businesses. I wanted to give you some background about our life and our businesses. Since 1971, the Ootman family has called this property home and our place of business, significantly contributing to the local economy and our county's well-being. Roger and Vicki Ootman, who Vicki is here tonight, started a dairy 50 years ago and were okay to have a business under the open zoning. Over the years, our businesses and families have changed to survive while playing a crucial role in our community. We've provided essential trucking and forestry services, employed subcontractors and staff, and actively contributed to local firefighting efforts, including during the High Park fire. Our work has also supported the region's recovery from devastating fires and floods. When we officially launched our forestry business in 2006, I contacted the county to verify we could operate under our current open zoning. And at that time, I was told that it was not an issue, but that is something now I realize that should have been documented. Last year, after a community member complained about our equipment on our property, we began the process of rezoning with the county. We were not aware that we were out of compliance. Given that we have 2 homes and a long-standing businesses, we opted for the planned development zoning to include the rural residential 2, so our 2 homes, and agricultural commerce enterprise, ACE. This designation would allow us to continue operating our businesses, which we have been running for 18 and 30 years. We have no intention of expanding our businesses or increasing traffic or changing the nature of our operations. The only difference is going to be a change on our letter zoning. 2 generations have been raised on this property, and 4 generations have gone through the CLP schools in LaPorte. And we've been actively involved in the local community ever since. Beyond these business and ventures, we've been involved with serving on the board of the Poudre Fire Authority, Livermore Volunteer Fire Department, the Virginia Dale Community Club, which restored the 1862 Overland Stage Station, and we actively participate and assist with 4-H and the Poudre FFA. Our business has become an integral part of the NRCS and forest restoration efforts in Larimer County. Over the past 50 years, our neighbors have never raised any complaints about our trucks and equipment. We maintain positive relationships with all our surrounding neighbors. Our business stands among several other longstanding establishments along the 54G corridor into LaPorte, many sharing similarities in nature of their operations, such as trucking and forestry. We want to be great neighbors, and we are open to any questions or concerns. Thank you again for your consideration.
Thank you. We appreciate your presentation, and I may have some questions for you later, but thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll now go ahead and open the public hearing and take public comments on this item. Is there anyone in the room that would like to give testimony? And yeah, you want to start? Sure. Thank you, sir. Introduce yourself, and if you could say where you're from.
Okay. Are you guys, how much time are you giving us? 3 minutes. Got it. Okay. I'm Zach Thode. I am a farmer and a rancher from Livermore. I grew up also in northern Larimer County. Went through CLP and Poudre High School. I'm also the chair of the Larimer Conservation District, and there's some staff here that'll probably speak also. But look, I've been continually in conversation with the county commissioners about the fact that over my lifetime, nearly 6 or 7 of the finished sawmill or finished wood product markets have dried up in Larimer County, and it's created a big problem, really. And county planning and zoning has kind of pushed those businesses out of the county. There's 2 on the edge in Weld County and 2 in Wyoming, and it's kind of sad, and it's kind of hard on the logging industry in this area. And it's also a dangerous thing, right? We've seen 300,000 acres of fires in the last 10 years, and it's a big deal. So the Conservation District has worked vigorously. We've spent several tens of millions of dollars in the last 10 years trying to limit forest fires on private property, and we run out of contractors to do the work. And so it's really important for us to get contractors to stay in Larimer County so that we can continue getting overgrown forests dealt with the proper forest health practices. And the Ootmans are a critical part of that conversation in numerous regards. Chad also does a lot of support for the ag community, and they run another ag operation in the area. And it's a big part of the ag community. I've been on the ag advisory board for 14 years maybe. And it's interesting to see the transition of ag in Larimer County, and it's essential for folks like Chad to be around here to help keep that going. Now, I've worked on the update to the Mountain Comprehensive Plan, to the the Mountain Resiliency Plan, the County Comprehensive Plan, and the Land Use Code Update. And I think this might be the first time that the ACE zone might be used. You guys would know better than me, but I'm excited because we worked really hard to find a way to put an ACE zoning in that would create opportunities for folks to fit their ag businesses into the properties that might need it. And I hope you guys approve it. I think it's a great use of the ACE zoning. And I hope it gets used more in the future because it's a critical function in our community is to have some of these value-added ag products that can meet our community needs. So, and then the last thing is I talked to the county commissioners a couple days ago about affordable housing, and I've talked to the Climate Smart Future Ready folks about affordable housing. The other part that's kind of tricky to me is we have a forest full of firewood. We have a lot of folks in this community that have a hard time paying their heating bills, and we can match some of these things together if we're smart about it and work these things out. We move timber out of the forest every day, and a lot of it's overgrown so much that we can't use it for a higher end value. So we have to use it for firewood. And so I think if we can keep some of these businesses intact so that we can actually provide a marketplace for firewood for low income housing, we'll have to work with the building department to finesse this a little bit because the building department isn't super excited about wood burning stoves. But
your time's up, but we really appreciate your comments. Thank you. And next, please.
My name is Colton Brown, and I'm a subcontractor to Chad's businesses and Nikki's and his folks' businesses as well. Anyways, I'm just here because I'd like to speak about these people spend all their money back in Larimer County, and like when I when I started my business 7 years ago already, Chad made sure I always had something to do, and he kept me in business, and my business has grown, and it's, I'm glad to say, pretty successful today. But with the logging and the trucking, and you take these people away and you take away the jobs, this is where we all know what land costs in Larimer County and all of the Front Range. When we put these people that have money to spend into a corner and we push the jobs out, the jobs go away and people can't buy the houses to afford to live here anyways. Chad always paid fair and he paid well. And it's tough to see that. You know, even personally, I spent my money in Weld County because I was warned of this situation. I have trucks and equipment with my business as well. And it's kind of known that this is how things go around here. You work hard and you build a business, and someone on a bicycle rides by and puts you in a corner like this. I grew up cycling. I believe it or not, I actually grew up in LaPorte down the road from Chad. And, you know, we rode our bikes down the bike trail that's parallel with 54G because 54G is a highway. The guy that called him in from the homework I've done is an avid cyclist, and I bet you that's where it started. Sometimes you drag mud on the road with your trucks, and we all help it. They've all got the mud shakers at the gate to get the mud off, but we all know that's where it begins. But anyways, when you take these people like this that are good people and they're good to everybody around them, they don't even vacation. All their money comes back to Larimer County. I mean, all of it. And it affects more than just them, and it affects our job markets and everything trickle down from there, obviously. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Next person, step forward. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Matt Mueller. I work for the Larimer Conservation District as a forester and the project manager for the logging operations. Just like to support Chad and his family and their business. They're critical to our operation and what we're doing for forest health in this county. And between Chad and his neighbor down the road, Mark, it's pretty much our only operations to take wood products to. And otherwise, we got to haul it all the way down to Denver, up in Wyoming. So the economic opportunity, along with the forest health benefit, is critical to our operation, and will put me in a great deal of hurt if we lose Chad. And just want to be very clear about what he's doing for the forest health. It's important. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. We appreciate that. Were there any others? A couple more? Yeah. You, sir, on the end. Why don't we start with you? You seem closest to the mic.
Excuse my appearance tonight, but I came straight from work.
No problem.
Repairing a machine. I'm Mark Morgan. I own the sawmill just down the road from the Hoopmans. And this is going to sound kind of funny, but I'm a direct competitor of them. And so, you know, it would be easy to wish them ill in their efforts here, but I can't do that. The county needs their services. They need all the services like this they can get. I believe the county is currently involved in a $200,000 study for biomass that you are just now completing to better utilize the exact kind of material that the Hoopmans use in their operation and that we use. I've been in business here for 50 and a half years and doing exactly this kind of work and forestry work. And I work pretty hard with a lot of organizations to try to increase our workforce and the education of our workforce, work with Front Range Community College. It's critical to have an economic driver to accomplish the forestry efforts that Larimer County needs to improve upon to limit and reduce the number of fires that you have. And that's just one of the many things. There's a tie-in also with wood products and agricultural. And I know that the Hoopmans right now are doing some experimenting with composting, which requires a biomass product, a cellulose product, to add to their manure operations. So I think it would definitely be to the county's benefit to find a way to accommodate their business. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, we appreciate it.
Hi, Kara and Ryan Baldwin. We're the property owners to the west. We wrote a letter in support, but we just wanted to come and speak and just say how much we appreciate the Utmans as neighbors. And again, to just say I really appreciated the slide that showed all of the kind of uses of land in this corridor, because it might be in a development plan that aspires for residential, but the reality is it's not residential. There are a lot of uses as that reflected. So there are a lot of businesses, and they've been, operating for all of these years, and we've never, ever had an issue, and they're just great neighbors.
Yeah, been great people to be neighbors with. So
great. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
I'm Seth Baker. I was born and raised in Fort Collins, and to add some diversity to the support, I operated a business here in Fort Collins for 6 years. I work at CSU as an adjunct instructor and sit on the BBB Better Business Bureau's Foundation Board of Advisors. I believe my father submitted a letter in their support, the Rocking Bar case, so I'm here to speak on theirs with their support. And we're that property that sits, that farm that you guys mentioned, that sits right there. And I think that you guys can see that the Utmans bring a lot of value to the community, and they bring a lot of entrepreneurial spirit as well. And they have our full support. And someday, if we ever were to develop and put a house out there, I think that there has charm there. I think it's also should be noted that directly behind our farm, it was approved for the concrete factory. So, I mean, if there's going to be anybody that's going to be more destructive or noisy to that area, it would be that. And they have our support as well. So just here to continue to add support for passing their rezoning.
Yeah, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Were there any others, or is that? And if not here, anyone online?
If there are any members of the public online that would like to speak, please use the raise hand function now. There are no hands raised.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you. I'll just say it's really, obviously you can you can imagine that a lot of these hearings you get just the opposite, where a lot of people are upset and kind of have, more NIMBY sentiments, I guess. And it was just really nice to kind of hear all the support that you guys have on that. So with that, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Let's see here. Are there any questions or comments from my fellow commissioners for staff or the applicant?
Michael, if you could pull up the proposed motion, that would be great.
I will get that up.
I move that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of County Commissioners approval of the LPCO LLC rezoning, file number 24, zone 3611, subject to the conditions found on page 256 of the Planning Commission packet.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, Ms. Scutchins, please.
Commissioner King,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
Duffy,
Yes.
Eggleston,
Yes.
Chair Rowe.
Yes. So round of yeses, it passes. So thank you again. We appreciate everybody's attendance and participation. Second item.
Thank you.
Is the Old Castle APG West Incorporated Special Review and Appeal. It's file number 23, zone 3541. And is there a staff presentation by Ms. Lasher?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Samantha Lasher. I'm a planner 2 with the county, and I'll be presenting the Old Castle APG West Inc. Special Review and Appeal Application, file number 23 Zone 3541. The subject properties are located at 1820 and 1930 East Highway 402 in Loveland, as you can see on the map. The properties are located approximately 0.6 miles east of the intersection of South County Road 13C and Highway 402. The properties are part of Rollins Exemption Plat, which was originally approved in 1974 by the commissioners, and both properties are located in the Loveland Growth Management Area. The applicant for the application before you tonight is Jennifer Henninger with Community Planning Strategies, who's here with us tonight. The owner of the properties is Old Castle APG West Inc., and we have Joe Golden, who's representing the owner tonight, also here with us. As you can see on the screen, 1820, which is the westernmost parcel, is currently split zoned between IH Industrial Heavy and CN Commercial Neighborhood, and 1930 is currently fully zoned IH Industrial Heavy. The acreage of the two properties combined is just over 25 acres. The properties are currently being used for the storage and distribution of concrete landscape products, and the proposed land use is a manufacturing facility to produce concrete products as well as continue the storage of these products. So the formal request before you all tonight is a special review for Old Castle to expand their site to add a manufacturing facility to produce products such as concrete pavers, concrete retaining wall products. Their request will include the addition of multiple manufacturing buildings, such as an aggregate mixer building, silos, and then dedication of outdoor storage areas. This application also includes an appeal to Article 435A2 of the code to allow for on-site wastewater treatment systems to be used on the properties within the Loveland GMA. I also wanted to let you know that there is an existing plugged and abandoned oil and gas well on the property identified with the red square. Per Article 2 of the Land Use Code, no building can be placed within 200 feet of this type of abandoned well. However, there are already existing buildings within this buffer. So rather than submitting a formal appeal to the Board of County Commissioners, Article 2 does allow the applicant to submit an alternative compliance buffer that can be reviewed and approved by the Community Development Director. The buffer can be no smaller than 50 by 100 feet. And the applicants did submit a buffer request. The director did approve their request with conditions, which is outlined in Attachment F of the packet. With regards to their proposed operations, if this application is approved, they would have two 12-hour shifts, 5 days a week. So the first shift would have 22 employees on site. The second shift would have 8 employees. They would be allowed a maximum of 30 on-site employees, as well as 4 off-site employees. And Old Castle plans to reach this maximum by 2030. They also indicated that they want to dedicate a small area on site to display product that they've produced, but there will not be a full retail operation on site as they do not supply their product directly to the end user. I also wanted to touch base on a few other related applications that are important to know. So because these subject properties are located within the Loveland Growth Management Area and are adjacent to annexed right-of-way, as you can see on the map, a special review application would trigger annexation. In the case of this application, the City of Loveland declined to annex the properties, which the Board of County Commissioners accepted in July of last year. With that action, that allowed the county to accept and process a special review application. The applicant has also submitted for a lot consolidation to combine the two properties into one. That application is currently in process and is expected to be finalized in the coming weeks. Lastly, the applicant did submit for height variances requests because there's an existing building as well as proposed buildings that exceed the maximum height standards allowed in the IH zoning district. So the buildings included in that request were an existing pre-engineering building, the aggregate mixer building, and 3 silos. The Board of Adjustment did approve these height variance requests in June of this year. I also wanted to provide a brief history of the site. This is not all-inclusive, but just touches on key elements. So in 1988, the property located 1820, which is the westernmost parcel, received rezoning approval to be rezoned from O open to I industrial, as well as special review approval for Colorado Precast Concrete, who was the owner at the time, to manufacture concrete, metal, and fiberglass products. Fast forwarding to 2013, the property on the east, 1930, also received rezoning approval to be rezoned from FA farming and commercial to industrial to allow Precast to expand their operations from 1820 onto the property at 1930. The rezoning approval was followed up with site plan approval in 2015. Then in 2016, Old Castle, who again are the current owners, they purchased the properties from Colorado Precast Concrete and continued manufacturing operations up until 2020. Manufacturing was then stopped at that point, and they just used the site for storage. And then in 2023 is when they submitted this application before you tonight. I also just wanted to touch on the special review process versus the site plan process. So as I indicated in my staff report, if this special review application were to be approved, the applicants would be required to submit a site plan review to evaluate some of the technical components of the site. So the purpose of the special review is really to evaluate a development, proposed land use, to ensure it's compatible with the surrounding area, and to ensure there's proper mitigation for any negative impacts. Sometimes, if there are any potential negative impacts, some of these are addressed and fleshed out during the special review application. Other times, conditions of approval are added to the special review for any of those impacts to be mitigated with the site plan review. And that was the case with many standards with this application. The site plan review is an administrative process where we evaluate those technical components and make sure all impacts have been mitigated before any building permits are issued or before the operation commences. We did provide community notice to 24 surrounding property owners. To date, no community members have provided comments on this public hearing application. We also referred the application to various agencies, both internal and external. We did receive comments from 10 agencies, but did not receive comments from 18, as listed on the screen. There are 3 sets of criteria that staff has evaluated with this application. The first is the general review criteria, which the county commissioners must review and find that has been met, found in Article 638D. This criteria has been addressed in detail in my staff report. The second set of criteria is the special review specific criteria found in Article 642D, which is also outlined and addressed in detail in the report. And then lastly, because there is an appeal associated with this application, the county commissioners must also consider the following appeal criteria found in Article 672B5. So ultimately, the Development Services team concludes that the request complies with the Land Use Code requirements, objectives, and the applicable review criteria. Therefore, staff has 2 recommendations. So first, the team recommends that the Planning Commission recommend to the county commissioners approval of the special review itself, subject to the following 30 conditions. I will note the conditions on the screen include the revisions that were provided to you all in the memo earlier today. And the second recommendation is that the team recommends that the Planning Commission recommend to the county commission approval of the appeal to allow for an on-site wastewater treatment system, subject to 1 condition. And lastly, we do have 2 suggested motions for the commission to consider tonight. Thank you, and staff's happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Lasher. We appreciate the presentation. Do any of my fellow planning commissioners have questions for staff at this time? Yeah, Commissioner Wright.
Thank you. I have quite a few questions, and so what I'll try to do is ask, is this working at all? Because it's not green.
Here,
I can't get it to green.
It's supposed to be red.
Use this guy.
It's supposed to be red to talk? Oh, well, what do I know? Okay, sorry. So I'm going to ask some questions, and I'm going to stop and allow the other commissioners, if they have questions, to ask them. If staff is not able to answer the questions, then hopefully the applicant, when their opportunity comes, will address those questions. One of the questions, is there any photograph or anything other than the site plans available that would allow us to more visualize the site when all these improvements are made so that we get a sense of how the height of the silos and the other buildings impact the surrounding area?
If the applicant's okay, we do have, I did talk to the applicant and owner before the hearing, and there are some renderings that were provided as part of the variance application that I'm happy to show, which may be what you're looking for, if you'd like to take a look.
Yeah, please, just a few.
And if I may ask the applicant to come up and explain what we're looking at, if that helps.
And we will have an applicant presentation as
Yeah,
well.
that's fine. If you want to hold that off to the
We can-
applicant, so that's fine.
Okay, we can wait. Yep.
Okay. So can you tell me what the distance is or the setback requirement would be from the road to where all this new development on the site's going to be?
Sure. If you give me just a minute, I can just look up the classification of 402. I believe it's an arterial. So if in that case, all the buildings would have to be set back at least 110 feet from the right-of-way center line. Okay. But I can double check that for you if you'd like.
No, that's fine. I mean, it's I was just getting a ballpark figure.
Thank you. Connor with the engineering department just agreed with me, so thank you.
They can do that. I want to go to the City of Loveland comments. They were strongly encouraging the widening of the roadway, apparently in front of or adjacent to this lot. And so I guess the question is, who has jurisdiction? Is that a CDOT decision whether or not to increase the width of the roadway, or is that a county requirement, or what?
I'll let Connor Sheldon with the engineering department answer that for you.
It is currently a CDOT roadway, so it would ultimately be their jurisdiction on what sort of roadway improvements will be required. We have been coordinating through several meetings with CDOT to determine the road improvements that will be required by this site. Ultimately, it came down to an auxiliary turn lane into the site to improve the function on 402, and limiting their access point. It'll be reduced to one access point. It currently has two. Limiting the one access point to a right in, right out. That's in accordance with the access control plan, which CDOT has adopted for Highway 402. So to answer your question, ultimately, it's CDOT's decision making, and the applicant is in adherence with what CDOT has asked for.
All right, thank you. And then I guess one question, and I realize the annexation issue is somewhat resolved, but if the applicant wanted to connect to the sewer system, which I understand is about 460 feet away, does that also require that they be annexed into the City of Loveland, or is that a standalone function?
It's my understanding that if that is a City of Loveland sewer line, that the city does require you to annex in order to tap into their services.
So so I'm being sure, because that's a concern of mine. I mean, to me, 460 feet. But so if the city has basically said, we don't want to annex the site, and the county has agreed with that, then there really isn't anything, we can't put a condition that they actually connect, since everybody is denied annexation. Is that correct? Is that my understanding?
Yes, I believe that is correct. And does Health have anything to add to that?
No, in these cases, we usually look to the city to decide whether or not they will support us approving a septic system when it is that close to their jurisdiction. And since they have given us that approval, we can continue to repair the septic under permits under our office.
Okay. Also, in the staff report, there was discussion regarding a letter of intent to supply water to the site, both for drinking as well as for actual manufacturing requirements, etc. But as far as I can tell in the packet, there is no formal letter indicating that someone can supply the water to this site. Is that correct?
Yes, Commissioner, you are correct. Staff did receive comments from the Little Thompson Water District, and you are correct. They indicated they have no concerns with the proposal, and they're currently working with the applicant on a finalized letter. But you're right that we do not have a finalized letter at this point. We will be requiring it at the site plan stage. And I do know that the applicants have recently spoken to Little Thompson and may have additional information for you.
Okay. I'll talk a little bit and then I'll stop for a bit. I want to go to the on-site septic system, which I didn't realize until I got into it more. There's actually 2 septic systems on site, not one. First of all, the septic, it's in a floodplain, this site, based on my understanding of the staff report. So is the septic systems in compliance with whatever requirements you would have since it's in a floodplain?
Leah, if you need, we do have Karen Nezat online. She's with the floodplain team. She might be able to help answer that question.
And just before we go there, we're not allowed, septics are not allowed in the actual like floodway. They can be constructed outside of the floodway. But there's setbacks and requirements in addition to that. But I don't, and Karen can answer that. It's not in floodway.
So the existing systems are not in the floodway?
Correct.
Do we have a map of the existing systems, and are they connected or are they 2 standalone units?
Because it was 2 separate properties in the past, they are 2 separate sources. Yeah. So 1930 had its own, and then the 1820, I think it is, had their own. And they're closer to the north side of the property near Highway 402.
All right. I did review, I reviewed the document from the third party who has made, I guess, an assessment of the existing septic systems. Was that assessment based on both of the septic systems or just one of the 2?
It was made on both. It was kind of confusing to read, so I can appreciate your questions. But yes, it was made on 2, and they did provide some kind of as-built drawings that are really rough, so we'd prefer that those get actually added to the site plan drawing for future. Especially, we're going to require quite a few repairs and additions for the site plan process.
Was the assessment conducted with keeping in mind the proposed total number of employees that would be on the site?
Unfortunately, those third-party inspections, like we required it as part of our sketch plan comments, and it's just to kind of assess what's there. The past septic that was installed on the 1820 that has the main office was designed to accommodate 30 people. So we wanted to check and see what the status of that existing system to make sure it was functioning. And per that third-party inspection, we saw that there was some significant damage that needs to be upgraded.
All right. If it's determined that the existing systems maybe cannot be repaired in a manner that would bring them up to whatever the code is at the time, if they wanted to, say, replace them with new units, would that require any additional permitting?
Correct, yeah. They would, if the system, if it seems that it's unrepairable, we would just require a whole new system. They'd have to dig up the old one and then be able to place it in an area that doesn't have traffic and, further out if there were any surface water, any other of those limiting criteria that we have.
There is some new, I forgot where I put it, but there is some new legislation coming down that talks about these types of things. They call it Regulation 43. And I realize it hasn't passed, it's still in draft form. Would the county then implement whatever the county is required to implement and then pass those along to this application?
Yes, if those are adopted before their permit comes in, yes. And our septic regulations are based off Reg 43. So yes, yeah, whatever comes in, we have to adopt as well. But it would have to be adopted by our Board of Health first.
Are there any leach fields in this associated with those septic tanks?
The property on 1930, it has two 2,000-gallon septic tanks, and the third-party consultant found out that there was an outlet to a field, but we didn't have record of that. So that's part of some of our questions too, as to whether or not we can even retain that. They'd probably have to build a whole new field for that if they want to retain. That building has plumbing, it needs wastewater disposal, obviously. And then the field, there is a field designed for the 30 people on site on the 1820 side, which is the main office building that has the office employees and things like that.
Okay. I'll go ahead and stop and allow other people if they had any questions.
Any other commissioners have questions of staff at this point? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, let me finish up.
Keep cranking.
All right. What's the depth to groundwater in that area, roughly speaking?
That I am not sure of. I don't know. Connor, would you know?
I'd have to pull up their geotech, so just give me a second.
Okay.
Maybe we circle back to that one.
All right. No, that's fine. I just thought,
I was going to say, I'll check the old septic records too, because we do profile holes that are 8 feet deep. So let me see if I found something from the past.
okay, I'm just more curious than anything else.
Did
It's
we
an
get
important
Jordana
question.
back on, by the way? She is her mic and camera. She's participating again. Or did we forget?
Yeah,
about
I'm here.
her? Okay, good.
I don't have any questions at this time.
Sure.
Okay, you in the staff report you mentioned about a 5-acre pond. Can you address what that pond is intended for? And yeah, I wasn't quite sure what it was there for, other than to I guess maybe runoff from the site. So I'll put that out whether staff can address it or not. I'll let the
Connor, can you address that question?
Yeah, the pond is for stormwater detention. All new impervious area, which they're adding impervious area, needs to be detained before releasing into the ditch on the south end of their property, which is their outfall. And so the pond is for stormwater detention. We will be requiring, as a part of site plan review, a little bit of additional analysis on that. But in general, for the special review approval, we agreed with the location and approximate sizing of the detention pond. Just a little bit more analysis will be required at the next phase.
Okay, thank you. Do you know whether or not applicant has received some letter of intent or agreement between whichever of the ditch? Apparently, there's like 2 ditch companies for any discharge into those ditches.
It has been conveyed to me that they have received approval from the ditch company to outfall their developed flows.
Okay. Do we know what the direction of the prevailing winds are out there?
We actually have that, I think, in their air permit. I think I saw that it was about 10 miles per hour on average, and I can double check what was entered. I just read that.
All right.
Today.
The reason I bring that up is I have a fair amount of work experience dealing with fugitive dust and other things in similar type facilities. So my concern is also with the fugitive dust. I recognize the applicant has put forth a system that maybe internally controls dust. I have some concerns about external dust. I see as one of the conditions in the staff report, they're supposed to clean up. They're also supposed to use water as a means of trying to control fugitive dust. I might say my experience working in this, and I was in charge of environmental protection at a heavy industry facility, that's a lot easier said than done. But hopefully, I guess that the air permits and anything from the air quality component covers that just putting water on may not be totally proper, will solve the problem. Also, the question is whether or not continued application of water onto material may adversely impact any raw materials that are used in their operation. So, and there are some alternative systems out there in lieu of using water. So I just put that out. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, all really great questions, and I think hopefully we get some more discussion on these, and let's hear what the applicant has to say as well. If you guys are prepared for your presentation.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here tonight. I am Joe Golden with Oldcastle.
And I am Jennifer Henninger with Community Planning Strategies. And this evening, before you, we have our special use review application. And what we're going to do this evening is go over who Oldcastle is and what the operations will be on the site. We'll talk a little bit about the history of the site and our partnership that we've had with Larimer County now for a couple years in working on this project and where we would like to go from here. Do you want to go ahead and kick it off? Put it up.
Would you like me to start with your presentation first?
Sure.
Okay.
Perfect.
Just let me know when you're ready for me to progress through the slides.
Yep. Yeah, if you go, probably jump to 2 and 3. So I have a small video I want to show you that basically talks about who Oldcastle APG is, which would be the next slide/video.
There you go. Is the sound on?
Uh-oh. No sound?
Hold on, let me see if I can get it.
And this is 1 minute and 47 seconds.
Won't be too long.
Scroll down.
Oh, share sound. Thank you. Okay, let's see if this works.
Okay.
Durable innovations that shape our lives. With everything we create, we hold a firm belief in maintaining that connection with the natural world to promote the well-being of our people and our customers. Our family members across North America are respected as the foremost experts in the industry. Our state-of-the-art facilities produce the top products across multiple building product categories, including hardscapes, masonry, fencing, composite decking, railing, pool finishes, concrete dry mixes, and multiple lawn and garden products. We are where you work, where you play, where you learn, where you connect, where you experience life. At the foundation of it all, people are our top priority. Whether our CRH family members, our industry partners, or the world around us. That's why we continually strive to find and create sustainable building solutions that enable us to build a better world for current and future generations, and why we continually develop new innovations, each with the goal to foster wellness through outdoor spaces that cultivate a connection with the natural environment. At Oldcastle APG, not only are we reinventing the way our world is built, we are reinventing the way people live well outside.
Great. Thank you, Sam. So as you saw there, Oldcastle APG, our products are meant to get you to spend more time outside. So we're a very sustainable company. Everything we do is basically to address all the environmental concerns in our plants to actually have environmentally friendly products. So the slide you see right there, and I'll monitor our tagline is "Live Well Outside." What you see there, this is actually a real backyard in Texas. All those products you see we actually make, but in this plant what we'd be making is the hardscapes, so that what you call pavers around the pool and the decking, if you would, is what we'd be making it. So hardscapes, what we call that, is what we'd be making at this plant here. So a little touch on this Just my.
Yes.
Okay, we'll touch on this a little bit. So Old Castle, we're a large company, but basically we're a company of family businesses that have been grown together. So you can see we have about 250 plants across North America in different businesses, if you would. So we actually have hardscapes, we have fencing, we have railing. We actually make packaged products for your backyard. We make Sackcrete, which is basically concrete in the bag. And our goal is to, as we keep expanding our businesses, is to make sure that we keep pushing the envelope on how we actually behave to our customers, our neighbors, and to our employees. And we're always looking to basically figure out how we do things best in class. And I can touch on that a little bit to answer some of your questions that you had. We have some ideas there. We've been working with staff on some of those ideas that we have done in some of our other plants that we want to actually bring to Colorado.
So I'm going to take a moment and give just a brief history of the site. Can you go to the next one? Okay. So as Sam stated in her presentation, this site has been involved with manufacturing, some type of manufacturing, actually since the mid-1980s. This is a photo of the site in 1999. And then, do the next one. This is what the site looks like today. And we would like to improve the site even more than this. And we started that process actually in January of 22. We had a pre-application with the county staff at that time. And then at that time, we were told we needed to do a site plan process, a lot consolidation of flood variance, as well as an annexation appeal. We submitted the application in September of 22 for the flood variance as well as the annexation appeal. In April of 2023, the flood variance was approved. And in July of 23, the annexation appeal was approved by the Board of County Commissioners. In June of 23, we submitted the lot consolidation that we knew needed to be submitted. And at that time, we were told we needed to do a special use review process as well as a height variance. In August of 2023, we submitted the Phase 1 special use review. We received comments from the county. They had some staff changes during that time. So we received comments from the county in February of this year, of 2024. And in March of 2024, we submitted for the height variance request. On May 29th of this year, we submitted the special use review as well as the oil and gas well appeal that has been since approved administratively. And we also submitted the OWTS appeal, which is part of why we're here this evening. In late August of this year, we received our first round of special use review comments with the gas well approval and some comments on the OWTS appeal. And we resubmitted on the 30th of August. And we are here this evening in front of you, Planning Commission. So we are thrilled to be at this point. It's been a process, and it has been a great partnership with Larimer County of us working together through this process. So what we want to focus on now is how we would like to improve the site. Can you go to the next slide? And I'm going to turn it back over to Joe so he can explain what is going to be happening on this site.
Yes, so our goal is to keep improving the site. So we're going to take some of the existing buildings and modify their purpose a little bit, but also put some new buildings on there. So we look at the existing buildings. You have an existing break room. We'll clean that up. That's actually where the septic is you're referring to. We'll eventually put what we call a recharge station for our employees, which is we take our product, we actually build a backyard, a patio, if you would, for our employees. We'll show you a picture of that. To the right of the existing break room is where the septic is, where kind of the grass area is. We have some existing storage, some existing pre-engineering. The existing pre-engineering is that very tall structure that you'll see in some of the renderings. The existing manufacturing is where we're actually going to put our machine that actually makes the paving products, the hardscape, which I like to call making cupcakes because it's kind of the same process. We have two new buildings, which is a curing addition. What that building does is actually when you make your cupcake, you actually stick it in there for about 16 to 24 hours. It basically keeps it at a constant temperature and then you take it, you put it in storage. I'll show you that in a second. The other item is what's called a new ag/mixer. That is actually where our silos are. They're inside the building. That's where we actually make the concrete itself. And then outside, there's actually some new silos. Again, this is kind of a picture, not even a rendering, because to the top of the screen, you'll see we have storage. I'll show you what that looks like for our product. But our product, if you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, is typically on a pallet. It's 3 feet by 3 feet, give or take. We probably offer a product on those kind of pallets. Any place we have pallets, which is the whole top of the page next to the bottom page, will actually be paved. So we put asphalt where we have our product. So most of the site does become impervious due to the asphalt that we have. What's not going to be impervious is, of course, what Connor was mentioning, the detention, which will be part of the site also. So anything that's not be paved, say like in the front left-hand corner, will end up being landscaped, and we'll have natural grass and those kind of things in those areas. So the intention is, how do we keep improving the site? And to touch on some of your questions, those are great questions, because as we get into these sites, how do we actually prevent those things? So instead of that was not part of the show, okay? To actually try and address those, to get to the root cause of those, and not actually try and address them on the back end, but address them on the front end. And we can kind of talk about some of the technologies, how we do that. So here are some renderings that we did for the height variance. Again, these are just renderings, but typically you see in the very, very far back, you see the old castle symbol. That's the building you're asking how far back we're. I believe that's about 800 feet, give or take, to that building. What's interesting is right in front of it is the existing building, which is kind of a hangar structure, which is about 55, 56 feet tall. So that really kind of grabs your attention. That's what is sitting there right now. You can see we have some landscaping up front. We have a new parking lot. Our idea is to basically work with staff to figure out what we need to do for landscaping. We've done a first pass, but we're kind of wondering if we need to improve on that.
I think we have 2 other.
Yep. Here's another view. So the intention, we'll look at this also, but from traffic perspective, because one thing is bringing dust and dirt onto your sites. When they pull on our site, we're going to have a right in and a right out. So any dirt/dust that comes on our site is really going to be from a truck that's basically bringing products already been on the highway. So it's not unusual or different than what you'd be doing if you pulled into Home Depot or Lowe's or Amazon or any of those other distribution sites. It's the same kind of trucks. But the intention is they actually have one-way traffic around our building, and we can look at that a little bit closer later on. But we do have only one entrance, so it's easier to control.
Are there any questions about the renderings? Does that help? Okay.
That helps? Okay, good.
Go back
Perfect.
to the other presentation. Thank you.
Could I ask something real quick?
Yes.
Commissioner Rowe, is this the right time? I just was hoping you could point out where on that site map rendering the oil and gas well was.
Yep.
Do you want me to go back to the renderings?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So it is on the west side of the existing
Yeah, you
storage.
can't really see it on there. Maybe if you go to the plan view in our presentation, it's where the existing big hangar is and where the building in the back was his old castle.
So the tan area.
Yeah, it's to the right or to the west of that, about 190 feet, if I recall.
Yeah.
I can pull up the other aerial.
Yeah, let's try that. Because I do believe it is on the other presentation.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of
slightly.
currently blocked by the
blocked
dark
by-
one.
there we go.
Okay, so if you see where it says new ag mixer, kind of in there, if you go generically about 190 feet to the bottom of the page, which is west, it's out there. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, so our plan is to do the 50 by 100 around there and block that off with either our own product or a fence product. We happen to make fences too. So we'll do something to basically block that off. It's actually has concrete blocks around it right now.
I'll go to the next slide.
Yes, so I want to show Yeah, that's fine. It's good. If you go to the next slide, I want to point out and start showing you what this thing looks like. So this happens to be pictures of another plant that I've been working at for the last year. In the bottom left, this is in Washington State, 30 minutes south of Tacoma. You can see there's a lot of trees in the background, Cascade Mountains. In the upper right-hand corner is a picture I just happened to take one morning. That's actually silos, but you can see Mount Rainier in the background. So if you're looking, right now we're looking at the front of the building, if you would. That's our plant. That plant is actually twice the size of the one we're actually doing here. So it's called 2 machines. In other words, it can make machines that make cupcakes, 2 of them. We only have 1 cupcake machine here. But what it's trying to give you an idea as a site is that it actually is paved. It's clean, and we'll show you some better pictures of that. But you can see what happens to our product. Again, it's generically 3x3. It's stacked up about 5 high, so about 15 feet tall, give or take. Trucks come on, they make a left to go all the way around the building. Eventually, on the right-hand side, you can see the trucks come along, and they actually get loaded. We call that the load lane. And I'll show you some pictures of how that actually looks as we get through the plant to kind of give you an idea of what we do about dust to prevent the whole dust issue from happening. But also in the upper right-hand corner, the other thing I'll point out is there's silos there, and there's actually the mixing building is the tall one, which is similar to what we're going to have here in Colorado, with the exception, I'll show you another picture. That building is actually not completely enclosed in Washington. Here it's going to be, but I'll show you pictures of what that looks like. So what happens is, the next slide would be great. So then these were not special pictures, so this was not, we didn't clean the site up or anything. These actually be my personal photos I had of one day I was walking around the site, and I actually asked my guys to make it be cleaner, because that actually is not good enough for us. If you notice how the stuff on the right-hand side is not in a line, so we always strive for best in class. And so you can see that the product is actually not perfectly in a straight line. So since we've actually striped it to make sure we actually get everything to be kind of perfect, so that's how detailed we get at our manufacturing sites. The trucks come on, they're actually coming with that pickup truck. I just want to show you for scale. They come in and they actually dump into, we call it a grizzly. Basically, you dump your material into the ground from the bottom of the truck, and it goes up the conveyor. The conveyor is on the left-hand side there, and it's covered. And then that goes up into the silos. There's a great picture to show what silos look like. That's our sand and our stone, our aggregate. And so how do we actually prevent the dust? One, we typically dump down instead of dumping in the air. 2, the product is already wet. So if you've ever driven behind a truck that actually is hauling sand or aggregate, sand can be as much as 25% moisture. So it's actually a lot of water in it. So it actually doesn't go into the air when we dump it because it's so wet. It goes up the conveyor. We actually have that covered. It's really not even for dust control. It's really to make sure we don't get any more water on it, but also serves a second purpose from a health and safety perspective. People can't put their hands in there. And then part 2 is actually if you want to actually eliminate dust, it helps with that also. The blue item is actually not a silo on the left-hand side. That's part of our dust collection system. So inside of our plants, I'll show you, we have what we call a sound room, machine room, where the cupcake machine is, which makes the noise. That's inside of a sound enclosure. So when you're outside the sound enclosure in the rest of the plant, you actually never hear anything above 80 decibels. So your iPhone is actually louder than our machine is. That actually collects all the dust and takes it outside, and then we basically we have to basically take the dust and have that be taken off site. On the right-hand side, what I was trying to show you is how we actually put our cement into the building. So again, this is just happened to be a picture I snapped one day. You can see how clean it is. That's actually right where the hose is there. You can barely see in the shade. The truck actually hooks those hoses up to those valves right there. And here's the technology that we have, right, to also prevent any dust issues from bringing cement in. So cement is basically the flour of our cupcakes. It's very, very fine, talcum powder. So the intention is when you hook those up, we have a system now that we've incorporated in Texas that we're actually going to bring to Colorado. It's the most advanced system in the world. It came from Europe. What it does is there's a computer. You can barely see it in that picture. There's a computer. So the truck driver comes along and turns the computer on. It runs a test, a pressure test, of all of our valves, all the turns that the cement is going to go do. And if there's ever a system pressure issue, it actually will not allow the truck driver to actually pump the cement. So in the old days, typically all of our plants, most of them, right now it will pump, and if there's an issue, it actually then goes out the top. It's called blow-off, so you don't have a high pressure explosion, if you would. So it blows out the top, and then it turns off the system. So it actually does release a bit of fine cement. This new system, you don't even put cement into it. It actually runs air through the whole system, checks for pressure. If there's any pressure points that are not acceptable, it actually doesn't turn the system on. So that's a new system, best in class you can actually get, that we're going to incorporate here. The other issue is possibly with noise. That system there is basically just what's called metal panels. What we could do in Colorado, once we do our we're going to do a predictive model, and then we actually are going to test it after we're in production, if you would. If we have any issues with noise, what we can do is take that, if we call it a doghouse, take the doghouse on the right-hand side and turn that into insulated panels, so it's in its own little enclosed building. And the other option we can actually do, too, if we need to, is the trucks actually pump the cement. We can actually take and put the pump inside the enclosure in the doghouse. Again, if noise becomes an issue, and move that from, I'm going to call it outside, to inside the enclosure, which will take care of the noise issues for us. Because that probably is the loudest thing we actually hear on our sites, is the pumping of cement. So we're going to solve that a couple ways. One, we have the new pressure system we're going to install. Two, if we need to, we put it inside a sound enclosure. Three, we can move the pumping to inside the building. What I was also trying to show you is just how clean the site is. This is the perfect pictures here. So again, the product is made inside the plant. I'll show you that in a second. What it does, it comes out in this roller, this conveyor system. Again, you can see how clean it is. This is just a normal day, regular old photo I took of us when we were ready to do some paint striping. So I actually was marking some stuff out for our site guys. That's how clean it is when it comes out of the plant. That's just a normal day. So we prevent the dust from occurring when we basically take care of our raw materials. Another shot, you can see we have striping, we have our doors, we separate pedestrians from vehicle traffic, and that's typically how we stack our product. Typically about 5 high is the most we typically go. You can kind of see how that works. It's all wrapped in plastic. Again, just, typical site shots you might see. So once it comes out, we put it in storage. It actually goes into finished storage, which you saw those big, the overview showed you that. On the left-hand side is a forklift taking out of final storage. On the right-hand side, that's actually what we call our load lane. So that's where the trucks come in, the tractor trailers. We take the forklift, put it on the tractor trailer, and it leaves. Again, you can see just a normal day that there actually is no dust, no dirt. So we actually do have some that comes on our site, one from the vehicles that come in, as you mentioned, just driving off the highway, they're going to bring stuff in. So what we do is we rarely use water. On this site, we never use water. We actually always vacuum everything, because sometimes it could lead to bigger troubles for you if you actually try and do it as wet. We do wet inside. We typically do dry outside. It's not saying we never do wet. Maybe once a year we might do wet to basically get anything that's basically kind of really hung on to the asphalt. But typically we just do dry, and we have a machine that does the dry vacuum. We do that every single day. So we have one person that does the whole loop every single day outside of our building to prevent that. So again, we have systems that help with preventing the dust, and then we actually just vacuum it up if we need to. And that's kind of a typical day you see there with what the dust would look like. So switching gears slightly, as we talked about, really Oldcastle is the most important thing to us is, of course, sustainability, our customers, our neighbors, and of course our employees. So this is something that we eventually will build. This is what we call a recharge station. So all of our plants have these basically it's a patio. We take our own products that are made on that site. So it's a great thing because the folks that actually work there every single day get to actually go use the product they actually made in their plant. And this is where they take their breaks or take their lunch or whatever it may be. And so the reason I show this shot, if you notice, right behind there is storage. So, and on the right-hand side, you're actually looking right into the plant. This is where they eat their lunch. This is how clean our plant is, even outside, that they can eat their lunch right where we're basically moving products. So to be able to do that, we're not going to have our employees basically in a whole bunch of dust or dirt. So the whole idea is to keep our plants so clean that it's never an issue for us. That's why I actually was trying to show that picture.
Now we have a few inside.
Okay, yeah, so it's some inside shots. This is what it looks like inside. The big silver thing in the middle is the sound room, the machine room, so we're making cupcakes. On the left-hand side, you see a conveyor. So when we make our concrete is different than your typical, certainly not like ready mix, it's not like even other precast. When our material goes into the plant, it goes in the batching plant. So our concrete is actually the consistency of, if you go to the beach and get some sand and you put it into a ball and it doesn't fall apart, that's the consistency of our concrete. So it's what we call a dry mix. So it goes across the belt, again, doesn't create dust because it's moist, and then it goes into the cupcake pan. The whole idea of what our machine does is you have shapes that you want to have in your backyard. The machine just actually takes and forces the air out of that product. So we were talking about it yesterday, it's really H2O. It's actually squeezing out the oxygen, the air that's inside the product, which makes it become strong quicker. And it's basically a dry concrete mix. You can also see Actually, on the right-hand side, we actually have, you barely see it in the red. That's our machine that actually does the vacuuming inside the plant. You see our plants are clean. They're well striped. The lighting is very strong. And the whole idea is, you can see there's not a lot of people. We can actually run that plant there with 3 people. We could, but typically we have about 5 people. And then we have our maintenance folks. So the idea here in Larimer County is to build up over as we build our plant up to get to about 30 employees. Again, some more shots behind you. On the left-hand side is the hopper bringing the aggregate up. And you can see how clean it is. Again, these pictures were not meant just for this presentation. I actually have to take this for myself. These are all my personal photos. On the right-hand side, you can see the mixer, that big yellow thing in the back. That's actually what makes concrete. So at Colorado, what we'll do is that's actually going to be its own separate building. Instead of being inside the plant, it'll be its own building. Because the reason is we have an existing structure already that won't fit the batch house. So we'll make our own separate batch house. Again, left-hand side, there's a big vacuum on the left-hand side, which you can't see. It has that black hose. So inside of our sound room, there is some dust in there. So they actually go in there once a day. They shut the machine down and actually go in and vacuum, physically vacuum everything into that vacuum machine and take all that dust out, which can't leave that room. The sound room right there is where we talked about where the machine is running and we have that closed. It keeps all the noise inside there. So the rest of this area, if I'm walking down that walker right there that's striped, I don't need to have hearing protection on. This on the left-hand side is what happens when as soon as it comes out of the press, the cupcakes is on the left-hand side. So people are amazed, where's all the dirt, where's the grime, where's the, the refuse, if you use the precast, it spills over the whole floor. Ours is not that way. This is actually a computerized system. So a person is not doing this work. It's basically a computer and a big press that does the work. So left-hand side is as it comes out. The right-hand side is I took a picture looking down on it. So that we have a walkway. You can come up and down and look over that. That's exactly what comes out. So you can see there's no water that's running off of there, and there's really no dust. There's a teeny tiny bit of dust, and again, that's what we vacuum up on a daily basis. So that product right there would eventually be in your backyard. Just give you an idea what it looks like. Again, just another shot to see what it looks like. That was one of the machines we put in 2017. So if you think about it, that machine is 7 years old, and yet you see how clean everything is. And that's our intention. The reason we do that is we have 5 fundamentals. And one of our fundamentals that we do every single day is housekeeping. So we actually shut our machine down in the 24-hour period. We shut down for about 2 to 3 hours every day to actually re-clean everything, which means we actually dust everything down, we vacuum it, we mop it, and then we actually have a machine that goes around actually, like you would see like in a mall, that basically does the wet thing that basically cleans up all the dust. We do that every single day because the whole idea is keep it inside the plant, it can't get outside. So it's all about prevention versus trying to figure out what do we do when it gets outside. Our idea is let's not let it get outside. So attack it at the root of the problem. So all this Oldcastle APG, our mantra is, again, is live well outside, is how do we experience outside, is to make sure that we create good products that, one, our customers can enjoy, we're good neighbors, we're all about sustainability, and then, of course, our employees can be proud of. So our goal here is to eventually have 30 people here in Lamar County making this product with us. There's actually probably one, yeah. So I do want to show that. I forgot to tell you this part. Yeah. So that's the HDTV. We do the HDTV house every single year. That's actually 2 years ago. That was Florida. So that's all of our product we actually make. You name it, we actually make everything you see there. In this plant here, we'd be making all the hardscape on the ground, let's call it, and around where the bar is and the kitchen, all that product can be made here. So you can win that house, by the way. That's it. So yeah, maybe go back one more. Yeah. It's more pleasant to see the pretty picture. Thank you.
So, and just to answer some of the questions that you had raised, Commissioner Weiss, in regards to Little Thompson Water District, so we have been working very closely with them and actually met them out on site yesterday. They had a few additional questions regarding fire flow. So their capacity will serve the facility here. We most likely are going to have to, with fire flow requirements, have an on-site water storage tank, probably in the 90,000 gallon range. So we'll have that on site. But we have been waiting for the commitment letter. We've paid all the fees, but they were asking some final questions in regards to the number of fixtures that are currently on site and what the peak flows would be needed for the manufacturing process. So we've given them all that information, and we anticipate having that letter of commitment hopefully by Friday, if not early next week. And with that, we'll be able to resubmit the lot consolidation application. We were waiting for that information from Little Thompson Water District. And then the other question you asked was in regards to notifying the ditches. And we have had communications with both Big Thompson Water Manufacturing Ditch as well as Green Meadows Water Association. And we're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We appreciate that presentation. That was really informative. A lot more detail on the certainly on the dust side. I'm sure we do have some questions, and why don't we just go ahead and do those now? Do you have some additional, Commissioner Weiss?
Thank you. So what's the status, though? You've had discussions with the ditch company. So what's your expectation as to what the outcome of those are going to be?
So Green Meadows is fine accepting the stormwater. And Big Thompson, if I understand the relation, is that Green Meadows Water Association is kind of the representative for Big Thompson Water District. So we've been working more with Green Meadows than we have with Big Thompson Water and Manufacturing.
And we've met with them and all the neighbors also to make sure everybody knows what we're doing.
So just a general question, though, assuming for discussion purposes that it's found that the existing septic systems maybe are not cost effective to upgrade, are you prepared basically to put a new system in place to address those?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, so we're a little unclear about the one that's kind of where the current restrooms are, the break room is, but we do know it's there. And as Lee had mentioned, the size of it, if we need to basically change out something to upgrade the leaching field or whatever it may be, yes, we do that wherever we go. We want to make sure everything is up to standards and all that good stuff.
Okay, thank you very much.
I was interested to know, how about the kind of the emissions, I guess, from the batch plant? And
The batch plant itself, emissions as in dust itself?
I don't know about dust. I guess I was thinking more on the pollution side, and I'm sure certainly out of my depth, but I just know that seems like to be a concern from some of the other concrete plants.
If I could add on to that, I was kind of wondering, scope 1, scope 2 carbon emissions that would be increased on that site. I understand that all cement is going to be made off-site, which is very heavy on emissions, but your process, it's going to increase some of the carbon emission CO2, basically, right?
It should not. I'll tell you why. So we buy the cement and it comes on our site, and really our mixers are extremely efficient. Again, this is all done by a computer. So human beings actually don't touch our product. So when they dump the aggregate, it goes up the grizzly. That's actually all automated by a computer. It gets in the mixer itself. That's actually done by a computer. It sends along that belt and drops into the hopper, if you would, and then makes the cupcake. All done by a computer. So really the only emissions we have would be electricity. And our electricity, I'm sorry?
The trucks on site.
Yeah, I mean, trucks come in on our site, true. That is 100% true. Yep. So there's that. But we actually think the water is equivalent to what they used to use in the old days from precast, but we use very little water. So one thing that Lee was asking yesterday about, washing out forms. We actually don't clean our forms with water, because if you do, then you need to actually grab that water because now it's been tainted by the concrete dust. So we actually don't rinse anything with water. Our mixer itself is not rinsed with water. Everything else is actually continuously brushed by the computer. It cleans everything as it goes continuously. And that's why we've always had the dust systems. Inside of our mixer itself, when that gets clean, there's actually another system that sucks the dust out of the mixer as it gets clean also. So all goes into that big blue silo you saw, if you would, on the side of the building. All gets sent out there, and then we basically remove that dust.
Yeah, so I would assume that the carbon emissions from the new process is equal or immaterial in an increase. Obviously more trucks, but that's scope 2 and scope 3. So, and then one other question: 30 full-time employees over the next maybe 3-4 years, something like that.
Yes.
And then in the packet it is you're going to run 2 shifts that are 12 hours. Is that in a day, or are you going to run 24 hours a day?
Yeah, our goal long term, you would go to 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. So we'll start with 12 hours a day, and then eventually build up to actually a machine runs 24 hours a day. And so the course, you might have 20 people on the day shift, maybe 10 people on the night shift, give or take, something like that. And what we do is we talked about changing our shifts to make sure that when we did our traffic study, that we understand there is peaks out there. So we'll start our shifts and end our shifts to basically miss the peaks.
Can you give us a general sense of the truck traffic that would take place over a given period of time?
Yes, I could, but I don't actually remember the exact numbers from the traffic study. But I do know that right now, say on an average day out there, like today when I was out there today, we probably have 25 trucks coming in today. And you probably have maybe about the same amount of trucks going out, maybe about half as many going out, let's say right now. It really depends on the time of the year. That number actually won't change even while we're in the first year or two. I can't remember the exact numbers. So in our traffic study, we did put the number of trucks. So he has the number of trips, and what are we, small office building? No.
So the truck
traffic. That's the number right there. Mm-hmm. He calls it trips. So PM peak, he has 10 in and 10 out. AM peak, 10 in, 10 out. So about the same as it is right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as Connor said, we've been working closely with CDOT and our traffic engineer to work on what is going to work best for Highway 402, and hence the reason that the shifts were set up the way they were, to avoid that shift change during peak hours.
Yeah.
And then just maybe a question for staff. So the county defers to CDOT in this case. Is that right? Because they're the.
We work closely with CDOT. So, yeah, it's their road. Ultimately, we want the decision to be theirs, and they will be getting an updated access permit through CDOT. So they have
It's their access
their
plan.
enforcement mechanism, but
Yeah.
it is our review process site plan. So we do have, review mechanisms to make sure that all of that is being met as well with our review. So I looked closely at the traffic impact study as well. And then on top of that, just timing, we're deferring some of the CDOT improvements until after some of the on-site improvements. And so we got an additional traffic memo from their traffic engineer to confirm that the construction-specific traffic for the on-site will be able to function adequately until those 402 turn lane improvements and access improvements are in.
Great. Yeah, thanks. And then this is just a question out of interest, but what makes this a good site for you guys?
Right now, we're making the product someplace else and bringing it here. So right now, it's really a distribution hub. And so we found that the market is actually strong enough. We don't have a plant close enough that this actually became a great site for us. So it actually belonged to another business, Old Castle IPG, which makes pipe and everything. They finished terminating that business. And they said, hey, we have a nice site. We said, great. We're actually bringing product down there anyways. So it makes sense to be able to feed kind of the Denver, Fort Collins market. We typically don't bring our product very far. So we can go far, but typically most of our stuff is actually within about 2 hours of a plant.
Makes sense, yeah.
When you're done, I have one.
Sure, yeah. Commissioner Weiss.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
Let Connor say, did you find the answer to the groundwater? I know it's high, but I can't give you a number.
Yeah, so we didn't get a specific geotech for the pond design. That goes back to what I mentioned earlier, that as a part of the site plan, we're going to need a little bit more specific. They did provide a drainage report, which is very important to understand the stormwater and the outlet into the ditch. And then when site plan rolls around, we're going to need more specific details on how that pond's going to function. And a lot of that we'll want geotech at that time to make sure that, when they dig down for the pond, they're not going to be exposing groundwater. And if they are, then basically what happens at that time is that we have to do a redesign. The pond becomes bigger and shallower. And so I don't have geotech available right now, but we'll definitely make sure to get that as part of site plan.
Thank you. Yeah, Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you. Now I have two questions. So do you know the type of soil out there? In other words, is it a clay or is sandy loam, or do you have any sense of that?
I believe that was provided in their initial drainage report, so I'll pull that up real quick.
While you're doing that, I'll ask my second, which is in the staff report, you give a 3-year window. In other words, you have 3 years to do this, or I guess you have to come back and start the process over again. I wasn't clear. When does that 3-year start?
So it starts from the date of approval, which would be, I believe, after the Board of County Commissioners, if they approve it, would be from the date that the findings and resolutions is recorded.
Okay, that's all I was just curious as to. All right, that's all. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. And does Commissioner Barrick have any questions? I'm sure you guys will let us know if she does.
No questions, just a couple of thoughts that maybe are more for discussion than questions right now for the applicant.
Okay, sounds good. Well, yeah, we appreciate your presentation. We'll turn to the public hearing portion here.
Thank you.
So we'll open up the public hearing and take public comment. Is there anyone in the room that would like to give testimony? Fewer neighbors in support. And anyone online?
If there are any members of the public that would like to speak online on this case, please use the raise hand function now. There are no hands raised online.
Okay, public hearing open and closed.
There is actually, someone just did raise their hand.
Okay. Do I have to say it's open again? We'll open the public hearing again. Yeah. And if that person online wants to introduce themselves and
sure,
give us their testimony.
Anne Brand, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
I raised my hand at the wrong time. I apologize. I think.
Great. There are no other hands raised online.
Okay. Public hearing closed. Yeah. Any further questions from commissioners of staff or the applicant? And otherwise, we'll move into commissioner discussion and deliberations on the item. Commissioner Barrick, I think you had some comments if you want to lead us off.
Sure. I'm in support of this project, and I guess I'm thinking a little bit about the 402 corridor and thinking about that in comparison 20 years from now to Highway 66 or 119 going into the Longmont area, which has a mix of industrial, commercial, residential, ag, all characters. And so I think that I know we're kind of looking more at the on-site water treatment facility as part of this application, and some of my comments might not necessarily relate to that, but I just thought I'd say I'm in support of it. And I saw in the renderings that there were some landscaping, tree planting as part of that. I could see 20 years from now CDOT expanding that road, and I guess I would just encourage you, if you are going to plant trees as part of this update to the site facility, to take that into consideration, because I think that some industrial spaces can look really nice with mature trees that sort of help just kind of disguise some of the industrial buildings in the back from the roadside that help it continue to fit in with the character of neighborhoods, or commercial neighborhoods, I should say. And then I was also curious of the oil and gas well that's on the site, and if I can't remember if you said that was actually abandoned and orphaned as its designation. And I think sometimes hiding it and forgetting about it doesn't help in the bigger picture of environmental things. And there is a nonprofit called the Well Done Foundation that, if it's truly abandoned and orphaned, they help to monitor, adopt it, and fundraise to cap it. And so that could be another solution to look into if that is an actual dynamic out there on the property. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Barrick. Yeah, great suggestion on the well, and I think staff has captured that comment. So, thoughts from other commissioners? Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you. Hopefully this will be my last, but anyway, I appreciate the presentation. I just want to say that I used to work in flat glass production in California, and I have, in another form, done numerous inspections at precast facilities, mostly on the wet form. So hence my concerns, or at least on some of that. I wish which is why I asked the question. I wish the city of Loveland would have required connection to their sewer system rather than continue the use or replacement of septic. I think in the future, that's the best approach. And I don't think 460 feet is really that challenging. But since no one wants to annex you, I guess you get out of that. I don't know economically which is better, but I'll leave it at that. Probably the only other, I guess, major concern I had was the applicant still not having a letter of water intent, as I call it, prepared now. I always thought that was somewhat of a condition to kind of move this initial review process along. Staff feels that this is really not that big of an issue and that one should be forthcoming quickly. I would probably say that from an applicant standpoint, that should be on the top of your list to get something there sooner rather than later, because I'd hate staff to spend a lot of time when, in fact, for whatever reason, someone can't supply you with the amount of water that you need for your operation. So with that, somewhat reluctantly, I'm going to go ahead and vote for it, but with some reservation, let's put it that way.
I'll weigh in. Yeah, for me, I'll be voting in support. Seems like it's the right use and the right location. The zoning fits. There's a number of variances or appeals as part of that, but ultimately it seems like it's a right use in the right location. As far as the water adequacy, yeah, I guess I'm maybe more convinced on that point, and it seems like there's also, if there is, less than optimal water there, it sounds like there's other kind of options with regards to the storage tank, et cetera, to kind of deal with some of that. So I guess I'm pretty confident that even though we don't have that at this exact time, it seems like those details will work themselves out and it's part of the site plan review. So, and if there are no other comments, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the Planning Commission recommend approval for the Old Castle APG West Inc. Special Review File Number 23 Zone 3541 to the Board of County Commissioners, subject to the conditions as outlined above.
Have a motion?
Second.
Motion is second. Roll call, Ms. Crutchins.
Commissioner Eggleston,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Barrick,
Yes.
Duffy,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
Chair Rowe.
Yes. We have a second motion if you want to do that one, Connor, as well. Did we do them both right there? Or?
I think you got to do it. I think you have to do the second one.
Yeah.
Number B here.
B. Yep.
I move that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the appeal to Article 435A2 of the LCLUC to allow for OWTS in the Loveland GMA, subject to the conditions outlined above.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call, Ms. Crutchins.
Commissioner Barrick,
Yes.
Duffy,
Yes.
Eggleston,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Chair Rowe.
Yes. And motion passes, both of them. Are there any reports from staff this evening, Ms. Axmaker?
We still have one more case.
Oh, sorry. Yep, sorry. We have our consent item. So yeah, third discussion item this evening is the new cell tower at 475 High Lonesome Road. Special review, file number 24 WCF0141. And we have staff here for presentation. All right.
Hi there, my name is Jared C., Planner 1 here for Larimer County. Gonna give a presentation on this here for you. And then do let me know if this still appears after I bring it to present. Looks like it does. Great. So I have the application 24-WCF 0141. It's the new cell tower at 475 High Lonesome Road. It's a special review application. The parcel only the application only consists of one parcel. It's 35.04 acres according to our assessor's page, located at 475 High Lonesome Road, Livermore. Situated due north of existing Highway 287 and approximately half a mile east of Township 12, Range 72. Apologies, the Zoom is blocking it there. Zoning district is open. Name of the request, or just request generally, is a special review for new 199-foot monopole cell tower to be located at 475 High Lonesome Drive, Livermore. This is a rendering of what the tower is to look like, although I will state that the appurtenances on it, the actual antennae that are depicted on here, are not going to be included with this. This is just showing what it would like at capacity. Those would be followed up by subsequent EFR or eligible facilities request applications that are subject to administrative approval each and every part of that step of the way. So none of those are going on. This is just request for the tower itself. This is just the site plan for it, showing where it is in proximity to the parcel, showing how it meets and demonstrates those setbacks that are there on the site from the adjacent roadway, any residential uses that might be there depicted to the northwest of the site, and the existing High Lonesome Road and access provided to it. Site photos were provided within the application process, but are also shown here as to show what the visual impacts might be for any of the adjacent owners or the roadway, what you might expect to see from it. This one is from 287 itself, I believe, and I believe this one in the center here is intended to be depicted from High Lonesome, with some of the site being concealed by existing ponderosa pines that persist within the area. Neighborhood notification was provided to all property owners within 500 foot of the subject parcel and prospective parcel boundaries. So the red highlighted area here is where anybody would have been notified. If it touched that parcel, then it then provides that notice to those neighbors or individuals that would own that lot. No written comments were provided to us at the time of referral from neighborhood individuals, neighbors, if you will. No comments were provided by community members prior to this planning commission hearing. In the special review application, the county commissioners and the planning commissioners in this circumstance would consider the general approval for review criteria, as well as standards in Article 9, wireless communication facilities, and general review criteria as listed in 638, applying in the application. I'll go through all of them, but starting with them starts that the proposal has minimum impacts on the existing and future development of the area. Any impacts associated with the environment, wildlife, access, traffic, emergency services, and et cetera here are to be adequately addressed or mitigated within the application. Recommendations of referral agencies considered. The GMA district, if it resides in one, is being adhered to, which in this circumstance it is not. And the application has demonstrated that this project can meet the applicable additional review criteria in Article 3, as also elaborated on within the land use code and the additional standards in the preceding slides. I can go in depth on these if you'd like, but generally we're looking at camouflage, concealment factors, as well as co-location of these cell tower equipment and the antennae to be placed on it through subsequent planning applications. Any lighting that may or may not be applicable to this particular structure, which there is not planned for this one. Noise that might come as a result from the tower itself. Landscaping or fencing requirements within the code. I can go in detail on this one if you'd like, but the cell tower sites shall be situated in a manner that does not reduce landscaping required by the land use code, that existing mature tree growth and natural landforms in the site shall be preserved to the maximum extent practicable. No trees larger than 4 inches in diameter measured may be removed. Landscaping for concealed towers shall be compatible with the type of camouflage or concealment technique necessary with these facility types. In this circumstance, this is not a concealed tower that they're proposing. We do limit that at 60 feet tall for concealment, and I can elaborate on that if you'd like as well. This is not within a growth management area too, so that last criterion is not applicable. Fire protection standards, adjacent residential uses are considered, and residential buildings are considered in the process generally as well. Design standards for alternative tower structures not in the right of way are also considered, which in this circumstance, this is not an alternative tower structure. Therefore, these criteria are inapplicable. And the general review criteria for the code, in that generally, unless specified in the code, county review and decision-making bodies are to review this application. It's also subject to additional review criteria set forth in 6.4, as we elaborated on before. Compliance with this code, in that it is meeting the intent of the land use code and the provisions within, that it's meeting any other applicable regulations that it might be subject to. The compliance with prior approvals is consistent for the site going forward and in the past. That the compliance with zoning district standards here are also adhered to as well. This being an open zoning district, it would comply with these standards. Compliance with development standards generally underneath of Article 4, which based on this application and review, we found it meets that criteria, and then compliance with any other code provisions that may be applicable. And we've also found that it met that criteria as well. So the development services team as a whole recommends approval on the new cell tower at 475 High Lonesome, subsequent to the following conditions outlined on these slides. That the site developed will be consistent with the approved plan and information contained within the application itself. Applicant is subject to all other verbal or written representations and commitments of the record for this case as well. That the application is approved without the requirement of a development agreement and the associated remainder of those conditions. Findings and resolutions shall be a servitude running with the property, so that this is held in perpetuity to these standards. The owner is responsible for obtaining all required building permits. Special review approval will automatically expire without public hearing if it is not commenced within 3 years. That the plan submitted with the building permit shall demonstrate compliance with referral agency standards as outlined within this application. And it appears that the 7th of these items has unfortunately gone off the screen here. That any proposed access or utility easement will need to be recorded by a separate document prior to the approval of the special review application. And then I have a motion here if suggested. So happy to take any questions.
Great. Yeah, thank you for your presentation, Mr. C. Any questions from my fellow commissioners of staff? Seeing none, is there an applicant that wishes to give a presentation?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, fellow commission members, staff. Anthony Amin, unique spelling, A-M-I-N-E, Amin Associates, appearing this evening on behalf of Maverick Tower. I think Mr. Say did a good job laying out the groundworks for this proposal. The bottom line is we comply with the County of Larimer's County Land Use Code. So I believe everything is there. We've had discussions about it with staff. Given the late hour, I'm more than happy to come up here and talk, in more detail. But bottom line is 199 foot. I will correct Jared Say, although it is a self-support tower. It's not a monopole. The site plans did show it as a self-support tower, which means it's not a single pole. It has different legs. It is a see-through tower, being a self-support tower. Per your code, in development in the open land use, a self-support tower, or it's referred to as lattice in your code, or guide tower is preferred over a monopole. So again, we're trying to comply with your design standards that's in the code. We took great lengths to locate this tower appropriately. If you go out to the property. We did not use the highest part of that parcel or other parcels in the area. It's surrounded, it's kind of in a bowl shape. So the first 20, 30, 40, 50 feet of that development will be screened naturally by the formation of the landscape that's existing there, and it's very important. We've taken time and effort to make sure we site this properly. Again, we're not putting it on the highest part of the parcel. Also, the concealment does not allow us to put a monopine. Again, as Mr. Say mentioned, it's capped at 60 feet. So trying to conceal a 199-foot self-support tower can be challenging. We're open to some suggestions if the Planning Commission so desires. Been more than happy to have a dialogue with you on that. E911 calls are a very important aspect of wireless communications. Between 80 and 85% of all E911 calls are generated from mobile phones today. The area in question, in the general area, there is a sign as you come in from the state of Wyoming into Colorado. It states it's a high accident area, use caution. There's been numerous times where Flight for Life has had to come out. And there's a gentleman who made a representation on social media, said, I'd love another tower there because we have to make sure we have the capability in emergencies to get the help we need. He said, if not, I think my wife may have perished. So it's a valid concern. It's important. CDOT is located across the street from the proposed location. For all the visitors, for all the people that are going to be out there, I think it's critical to have appropriate communication, seamless communication, and obviously in the event of emergencies, it's very important to have that. We've discussed concealment. There's been discussions with regards to other items, but again, we've done the best we can. Sometimes it's impossible to please everyone. There's no ideal location, or very rarely. There are times when you can get lucky and we can find it in the right spot and no one complains. But we take this serious. It's very important. We want to be the good neighbor. The folks, the landlords or property owner, want to be the good neighbor too. They don't want to be involved in a project that's detrimental to all the neighbors. As Mr. Say mentioned, letters were sent out. There were not any responses, but I believe obviously there's a resident here that came out, and obviously her voice is important. But again, we try to do the best we can to locate it. May not be great for one neighbor, but it's best for the whole neighborhood. It's best for the area, and that's what we strive to accomplish. Be more than happy to come up if there's any other questions. Usually it's a Q&A type format. I believe the process would be let public comment come up, and then you welcome me back up for Q&A, and I'm here to answer those questions.
Great. Yeah, thank you, sir. Appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
With that, we'll open public hearing and take public comment. And thank you. And if you guys wouldn't mind just introducing yourselves.
I'm Tabitha Friedman, and this is my husband, Danny Friedman.
Danny Friedman, yes.
And we live adjacent to the 475 High Lonesome at 678 High Lonesome. As a resident of the 678 High Lonesome, I am deeply concerned about the negative impact this tower will have on property values. Numerous realtors and appraisers have written letters on behalf of others at hearings such as this, indicating that property values near cell towers can decrease by 77 to 30%. For example, a public opinion survey published in the Appraisal Journal noted price drops ranging from 10 to 21%. Additionally, a study by the National Institute for Science, Law, and Public Policy found 79% of respondents would not consider purchasing or renting a property within a few blocks of a cell tower. One poignant example is Julie Levine, the current executive director of 5G Free California. She faced a devastating loss when she had to sell her home for $300,000 less than its value due to the installation of cell towers in her rural area. Julie has publicly shared her experience, stating that after the towers were built, she developed electromagnetic hypersensitivity, which severely impacted her quality of life. She began suffering from insomnia, severe headaches, nausea, and gastrointestinal issues. Her story illustrates the potential financial and health consequences residents could face if this tower is constructed. Health and safety concerns. The safety guidelines governing cell towers has not been updated since 1996 and rely on outdated research from the 80s that only considers thermal effects. Current research reveals alarming health risks associated with radio frequency radiation, including abnormal cell growth, childhood and adult leukemia, immune system suppression, and even increased cancer risk. The World Health Organization recommended in 2019 that radiofrequency radiation be reevaluated as a high priority, yet action on this remains stagnant. The FCC is the primary regulatory body overseeing cell tower emissions. However, it is important to note that the FCC is not a health and safety organization. The standards they set have been widely criticized for being inadequate, particularly as they do not account for emerging research on biological effects of radiofrequency radiation. Numerous scientists and health professionals have urged the FCC to update these standards to reflect the latest findings, but as of now, these guidelines remain unchanged. Significantly, a survey indicated that 94% of respondents believed a cell tower would negatively impact their purchasing decisions, even among those who thought there was no health risk. The weight of peer-reviewed evidence from studies such as those by Hardell and Carlberg, 2017, and Peleg et al., 2022, supports that radiofrequency radiation is a proven human carcinogen. Furthermore, the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health recently published findings indicating that radiofrequency electromagnetic radiation from cell towers can contribute to diabetes. A concerning health example comes from a neighborhood in Jaipur, India, where residents experienced serious health issues shortly after cell towers were installed nearby. Reports indicated that several individuals developed cancer, including 2 brothers in one family who were both diagnosed with brain cancer.
Thank you. And there's a couple of you guys here if you want to take a few minutes for yourself as well, sir.
I also have alternative for communication. While some neighbors advocate for the tower to improve cell service, my family and other neighbors have successfully relied on our cell phones and alternatives like Starlink for years. We watch movies, complete homework, and conduct research online without issue. Many neighbors have shared similar experiences using available technology effectively. Concerns about emergency communication can be addressed without compromising our health and safety. It's crucial to note that once a cell tower is built, it can be expanded by an additional 20% or 20 feet without community consent, per Section 6409A of the Middle Class Tax Relief Job Creation Act of 2012. This poses an ongoing risk that must be considered, and once one is allowed up there, it sets precedents for others to be built in the area as well. The environmental impacts. The effects of electromagnetic radiation extend beyond human health to our local flora and fauna. Birds, animals, and insects use the Earth's natural geomagnetic fields for communication and survival. Communication towers contribute to nearly 7 million bird deaths annually due to nighttime collisions. These collisions often occur because birds are drawn to the lights on the towers, especially during migration. Additionally, the presence of tall structures disrupts their natural flight patterns, further increasing the risk of collisions. Beyond birds, local wildlife such as deer and elk are also at risk. These animals rely on their natural surroundings for communication and navigation. The introduction of tall structures can disrupt their migratory paths and after their behavior, potentially leading to increased stress and difficulty in finding food. Changes in habitat can also affect their breeding patterns, further impacting population stability. Moreover, these disruptions have been linked to the troubling decline of bee populations, a vital component of our ecosystem. Studies suggest that electromagnetic radiation can interfere with the navigation systems of bees, affecting their ability to find food and pollinate plants, which is crucial for maintaining biodiversity and agricultural productivity. Furthermore, the installation of cell towers can adversely affect local tree health. Treetops facing tower antennas may dry out as these areas can act as RF waveguides, leading to detrimental impacts on forest health and the broader ecosystem. These disturbances threaten not only individual species, but the intricate relationship that sustain our local biodiversity. In conclusion, the proposed cell tower of 475 High Lonesome Road threatens not only our property values, but also our health and the well-being of our environment. I urge the Planning Commission to seriously consider these critical issues and oppose the construction of this tower. We did move up there. We moved up there because we wanted to be away from the city lights and live with the nature and the beauty. And this is a 200 tower foot or 199 is going to be seen by my house, from my front porch, from my windows, not from theirs, because they are down in where he called the circle of the property. And we are the one neighbors that are going to be seeing that when and if we plan to sell, which we probably will because we can't afford to live in Colorado anymore. That's going to be detrimental to the sale of our home.
We thank you for your comments and thank you for sharing them with us.
Thank you.
Looks like we've got an online person.
We do have a hand raised online, and if anyone else online would like to make public comment, please use the raise hand function. Anne, you will be up first. You will have 3 minutes to speak, and if you could state your name and spell your last name prior to your comments, that would be appreciated. And you should be able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. So I did send an email with a letter in it to Jared, and I did have the issue that I typed it so quickly that I didn't send it to the right email address. So Jared, I want to confirm, did you receive my letter?
I received the letter at 6:57 p.m.
Right, because I didn't determine that I sent it to the wrong email address till after making dinner for my children. So you do have a copy of it?
I do have one residing within my email right now, yes.
Right. So does the Larimer County Commission have access to the letter?
And so this is a comment period right now, but your letter can be included for the next for the county commissioner hearing. So, but yeah, you've got us now. So if you want to give us your comment, you've got a couple more minutes for that.
I certainly will. I just wanted to know whether I should read the letter or I should identify the concerns of my members in the letter, since you have access to it, and then you have it as reference facing the next meeting.
Yep. So your letter will get included in the county commissioner hearing, so they'll see the letter. We're just going to have your testimony now if you want to go ahead and give that to us.
Yeah, so I'm the executive director of the Albany County Conservancy in Albany County, Wyoming. But the focus and mission of the Conservancy is to preserve, protect, and promote habitat, history, and wildlife in northern Colorado and southeast Wyoming. In specific, the migratory area of Highway 287. And so we are a 501c3, and so as I speak tonight, I represent hundreds of members that live along the Highway 287 corridor. So one of our members is a geophysicist and a geologist, and he was not able to make comment tonight. And so I wanted to address two things. First, I'd like to point out that personally, as well as some of the members of my conservancy, I did not receive notification. And I do reside at Highway 287. My address is in that letter. And I actually sit right where the sign is that Anthony Amin referred to that talks about high accident location. And I have to laugh at that. That sign hasn't slowed down the traffic as it whizzes by my gate. I wish it was a wildlife crossing sign. So that is an extreme concern to my members. There are a lot of ungulates, and there are a lot of species of greatest conservation need that migrate through that area. I don't know if any of you have driven on Highway 287, but it definitely is rural. It is not urban, and it's very apparent that that part of the Never Summers and the Mummy Range, that wildlife cross back and forth all throughout the year. So that's a concern. And to get to my member, that's the geophysicist.
Miss, your 3 minutes is up, so if you could just wrap it up here, we'd appreciate that. If you have some parting comments for us.
Yeah, I want to mention a geological feature referred to as the Virginia Dale Complex. And the complex is naturally occurring. It's batholith, and it's composed of Sherman granite. And that's a contributor of radon in the area. So radon testing in this area has documented testings as high as 598.4 PCI. Cell tower radiation limits don't protect against long-term effects for wildlife. And that's addressed in the letter, so I don't need to go on. I can be observant of my time deadline. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate your comments. Was there one other individual online?
There are no other hands raised online.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, we appreciate that public input. First, I'd like to give the applicant a chance to respond to any of the public comments they've heard this evening.
Hello, sorry for the late night, you guys. My name is Jennifer, legally Golden, and I live at the property that this proposed site is at. And I don't have wildlife studies, and I didn't bring stats, so I'm just kind of give you a quick rundown and of kind of how things went. So we were contacted almost a year ago by the cell tower company, and if you can imagine, your first instinct is kind of like, ugh, no, like I don't want a tower on my property, and it's such a beautiful area. So, I mean, I agree with everything the neighbors are saying in that regard. And then, as neighbors do, we all start chatting. So I start chatting with the neighbor across from me, and he's talking to the cell tower company, and the neighbor to the north of me is in conversation, neighbors at the state line. So everybody's kind of negotiating for this tower. So the thought that it's just not going to come to Virginia Dale just didn't seem practical. So in talking more with the company, the reasons that they were interested in putting a tower there, they wanted it within a half-mile radius of the rest stop due to increased use of the rest stop. And then 287, the traffic there has tripled since COVID. And with the paving of Owl Canyon, it's a main trucking route. So it's not a sleepy little spot anymore. It's very, very busy. There's multiple times I've been outside grilling or hanging out with my family, and Flight for Life is, above our property trying to figure out where to land. There's a lot of accidents there, fatalities, and that's a dead spot in the highway. So as a public safety concern, if something happens there, it's quite common. People turning in and out of there with traffic going by at 65, 70, semi-trucks going by. It's just a lot of accidents. So a dead spot there where you can't get a 911 call out, it makes sense to me, and the increased traffic. So in deciding then where to put the tower, and in our negotiations with the company, we wanted to keep some things in mind. So we negotiated that it wouldn't be so tall that it needed a light. So there would not be any light. We didn't like the look of the retention lines. There'd be no retention lines. It would just be the pole. And with the pines and the rocks around it, and the spot where it's proposed to go is up at the top. So when you turn into High Lonesome, we're the very first property. We border the highway, we border the rest stop, we get all that fun stuff. But it's the very tip top of our neighborhood. It's the furthest from all the neighbors. It's right into the entry. I think most of our neighbors are a half a mile to 3/4 of a mile away. These aren't little 2-acre parcels. Ours is the smallest parcel at 35 acres. One of our neighbors has 150, 200 acres. So this tower's not right in someone's backyard. And the corner of our property, to address the Friedman's concern, it's actually going to be, it's not out their front door. It's out the back and the side. And so we walked the site today. From where it would sit, you can't see ground support from their home at all, but they would see, part of the tower from their upstairs bedroom and bathroom window. It would not be out their front door. And the other neighbors that were kind of negotiating for this tower, one's across the street from us that would have been right out their front porch. The other neighbor, Miss Sullivan, was talking with them. They border us to the north. That would have been worse for them as well. So we kind of thought we were the lesser of all the evils and that you do need something in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate that, Ms. Golden. Yeah, I guess I'd be interested to know if the applicant can respond to, if there's other comments that you have, but I heard kind of health impacts, if you could say more about that. I kind of presume that in urban settings, people are probably far closer to these high energy towers, but if you could maybe just speak to some of the health impacts as you're aware.
Sure. With regards to the health impact, I think there's first and foremost, excuse me, the Federal Telecom Act of 1996 precludes a governing body to deny it based upon that. September 9th, 2024, unfortunately, Ms. Schneider's not here. I may quote, it was part of the slide. If you go to probably the last page, if you wouldn't
And so
mind.
maybe not as part of the basis of our decision,
Okay,
but
sure.
maybe just for the general public's in knowledge, just I assume that the reason we have that Telecom Act is because there's science that supports distance away from these. And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I didn't bring with me, CNN just did a survey or a study. I apologize. In 2024, they did it was a 20-year study, and it was determined that there are no health effects from using a cell phone or wireless communication facilities. And I struggle sometimes to bring a lot of documentation regarding the studies. There's this, there's that. Unfortunately, is in the society that we live in today, I can probably go online right now, find 85 studies that say it's safe, and I can find 42 studies that say it's not safe. So the balancing act that we do as telecom providers, and I think as municipal boards have to do, is there are studies, there is hysteria. It's an emotional subject, but I think we have to be guided by law. I think that's the bottom line. I think that very simply, answers the question. Again, hospitals have antennas on their roofs. It's prevalent everywhere. Everyone's using the technology. Everyone wants it. A lot of people don't want to see it. We understand that. People want the phones to use, especially in emergency situations. It's an emotional subject. It is, and I understand. I'm not up here being cavalier and saying, "Well, we're just going to hide behind the law," but we have to guide ourselves. We're a society of laws. We have to follow the laws. So I guess I don't know if I answered that appropriately or gave you the information, but there are studies. There has not been a study that's been concluded to be valid where the federal government is looking at it to say, okay, wait, we have to change our regulations. And, that's where we're at today.
maybe can staff give us some idea in terms of the basis of our setback requirement from a residence?
Yes, within our land use code, I believe we require double the distance of the height of the tower from the cell tower resident or the residence that would be adjacent to it or residential uses. So that's complied for within the point of this application.
And part of that basis is just to make sure that should the tower fall in some sort of event, that it doesn't hit or injure any other properties.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the folks that are here tonight opposing the Freedmans live approximately 0.48 miles from the base of the tower. So it's quite a distance away. I think the closest neighbors are about 0.3 miles. So it's quite a distance away. And
700 feet, I think, is what the staff
no,
report said.
a lot more than that. You mean distance?
A lot more than that. Yeah, well,
Are you speaking relative to the residents
To the
that is on
residents?
the parcel?
Oh, I guess it's the residents on the parcel that I'm speaking to. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Which
Yes.
would be Mrs. Golden's residence. Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions for my fellow commissioners on this?
Mr.
Yeah,
Chair, if I can
please.
just address a couple of things from the staff perspective, just to put it
Yeah.
on the record. This project was referred to Leah Schneider from the Health Department. She did come back with a comment letter dated September 9th of 2024, and it does include reference to the fact that local governments cannot make comment on radio frequency emissions related to wireless telecom. And then I know one of our commenters brought up the notice issue, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that we did follow the land use code requirements for proper notice. And we do understand that sometimes people do not receive the mailed notice that they believe they should receive. And that's part of the reason why our code has multiple methods of notice. For example, this was required to have a sign posted on the property so that anyone in the area could visually see that there's a hearing going on, as well as our website and published newspaper notifications. And that's all.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting those. Yeah. If there's no other questions of the applicant, we can excuse you and move into deliberations on this.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm happy to jump in. I mean, Commissioner Duffy did. I think for me, the owner kind of summarized, I think, some of my sentiments, which is that this is, these are probably never, there's never a perfect location. It's a compromise. There's trade-offs, I think. And for me, the kind of the benefits of the cell tower and the compatibility with the zoning make a lot of sense. And so I'll be supporting it. Commissioner Eagleson?
I appreciate the comments and concerns, but coming from kind of the emergency stance and side of things, I'm supportive of the cell tower. Just knowing the extent and the increase in emergency service calls up to that area and the need for cell service, realizing it firsthand in some of the cases with my other positions. So I'm in support and still appreciative of the comments and the positions of the neighbors, but I think the emergency services and the 911 needs is substantial.
Yeah, Commissioner King.
I just wanted to say that I also I'm going to support the motion, but I also appreciate your comments about health and then also about the property value. I understand that that's a concern with a lot of folks who have cell towers nearby. And just quickly, I looked up some studies on property values, and it did say that once the cell tower is more than 1,000 feet away, the property value effect is negligible. And I believe that if you're a half mile or 0.48 miles away, I think, right, then hopefully it won't have as much of an effect as you anticipate. But I just wanted to acknowledge your concerns.
If there are no other commissioner comments, then I'd certainly entertain a motion.
I move the Planning Commission recommend approval of the new cell tower at 475 High Lonesome Road, special review, file number 24 WCF 0141 to the Board of County Commissioners, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call, please, Ms. Crutchins.
Commissioner Duffy,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
Barrick,
Yes.
Eggleston,
Yes.
Chair Rowe.
Yes. Want to thank again everybody's participation, the applicants and the citizens who came and shared their comments with us. We do sincerely appreciate that. So yeah, now moving on to any reports from staff.
Yeah, so last week was the state APA conference, and I know several of the planning commissioners were able to attend. Thinking that we had a light agenda tonight, I thought it might be a good opportunity to share any observations. However, I'm more than more than happy to table that until our next meeting if we're ready to call it an evening.
Kind of reading the room, maybe we table that one.
Works for me, no other reports.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and with that, we'll be adjourned.